What's going on? Charles Botenston here. Just wanted to make a quick video about two things that literally just happened. And obviously you can see I'm in a more of a contemplative kind of mindset and mood and just overall demeanor. And it really started, I guess, so I have this stand, this laptop stand that it looks great. And obviously, so I was at a Starbucks. Okay, we can start there. I was at a Starbucks and I just doing a couple of little pieces of work and everything else. And I put my stand or my laptop on a stand so I don't have to look down and everything else. And, you know, a couple of people have walked over. Actually, 3 people walked over. And they're like, oh my God, they're like, what is that? And I went into it and I bought it on Amazon and it's great for your neck because you don't look down and everything else. I highly recommend it. Anyone, hold your phone up to eye level. If you're doing any kind of work or anything else, keep your neck straight up because I'm telling you, over time, I already see kids in New York City. They're like looking down and it's terrible for them. But so this one guy came over and I was really deep into work. I had my headphones on and he stopped to my right and I sort of acknowledged him, or not acknowledged him, but I sort of knew he was there. And then I looked over and he goes, oh my God, where did you get that stand? That is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. And he's probably, 15, 16 years old. And I take off my headphones. I was like, oh, thanks, man. He's like, where did you get that? That is so cool. And I was like, yeah, I got it on Amazon. And then the mom started kind of pushing him away. It was a combination of me into my work and I wasn't in like a social mindset and it kind of came out of nowhere. And then the mom kind of pushed him and she goes, thank you. And I was like, wow. I was like, so essentially what the mom was saying was that he had some development challenge, but it was just a little bit, like not enough that I would actually notice until maybe a minute and a half in. And she said, thank you. And I really wanted to walk over and say, no, thank you, because putting things into perspective of what we take for granted, like I have a laptop stand and he goes, holy cow, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And then she thinks that, I guess the thank you was like maybe that he was a burden or something else. Like, thank you for spending time with him. And I really wanted to walk over, and I should have, in retrospect, walked over and been like, no, thank you. Because, granted, I know a lot of people that have autistic children and their lives, it's very, very stressful. And it's, I wouldn't even know. One of my friends, his brother has an autistic child who put toy cars in the drain and clogged the entire house drain, and they had to get the entire house refitted with plumbing, which was God knows how much money. So I understand the financial that could be there, and obviously, just understanding at one time, there's other stories that he's told me, but it really puts things into perspective. I'm hard at work, and just the little small curiosity things. And then I'm walking out, and I was at Barnes & Noble, and there's a Starbucks in there where I was doing the work. And on the way out, this woman had a book, and it was like a new release. And it said, this little thing called life. And it caught my eye, and I was like, oh, okay. It said, my life with Elvis and Bruce. So I was like, okay, caught my eye. And obviously I'm not really a kind of a social media kind of fella. Or not a social media, I'm not a reality or Hollywood guy. I don't really care. Us Weekly and movies and things like that. I don't know who's dating who's getting a divorce or children or any. I really don't care. And obviously it was Bruce Jenner and Elvis Presley. And I'm reading through it, and well, actually I didn't read through it. I just went to the picture area. And I guess this woman who married and had Brody and Brody Jenner and Brody's brother, I don't know his brother's name, And she had some amazing photos in there. I guess she either married Elvis or was with Elvis or whatnot. And she had really early photos of her and Bruce when Bruce was Bruce. And she referred to him as Bruce and whatnot. And it was an interesting title to her book because she was at an early age, she was always tied up in Hollywood because she was with Elvis. She was showing Barbra Streisand and just a slew of other celebrities. And it was interesting because she called it This Little Thing Called Life. The name of the book. And between this guy who was so interested in my laptop stand and wanted to know so much, and then the woman saying thank you, and then reading the book, I walked out of Barnes & Noble and I'm like, what is the meaning of life? You know, I've gotten to the point, and I don't know if I've done a video about this, is that humans create everything. We create meaning, we create language, think about it. Government would not exist unless we actually believed that it should exist. And just hear me out on this. This is extremely, extremely deep right now. Is government and currency, I don't know the exact terms, but there's an acceptance around when people say this is fashionable. There's nothing that makes anything fashionable, you know, or like wealth or money, you know, nothing. We put meaning on a piece of cotton and something else that has a dead man's face and a number mean that this will get me $10 or $5 or $100, and it'll be able to buy me something like food or water or service or a product or whatever. Or we transfer money, which is really just numbers on a computer screen, between one and another, and then we buy a house or we buy land. Do you understand? What humans have created everything. We've also created everything that means anything. It means that we're happy or we're sad or they're ecstatic for buying a house, you know, or even little things like they won a gold medal. So she called it The Little Thing Called Life. And it's interesting because she had such a big life. You know, you're talking about all these major people that she had photos with, you know, Presley and Streisand. Even before Bruce, like she had other just very well-known singers and Hollywood stars and, you know, my dear friends, she would call them and everything else. And it's like she had such a big life. And then she's saying that this little thing called life. So in other words, did she get meaning from life? And, you know, Tony Robbins, who I could tell you right now, if he really, really wanted to just blow everyone's mind about what things meant in the world, he could, but he dials it down for the public to easily understand. So in other words, he could easily say what you're doing doesn't mean anything. You know, there's something called Landmark. Everyone calls it a cult and everything else. I think I've talked about it, where it took me a year and then I finally went to something. It's called the Forum. But they have the conclusion. So if you don't really want to hear what the conclusion is after an entire weekend, but it's that life is empty and meaningless. So obviously you're like, okay, Charles, you've went off the deep end. But if you think about it, life is empty and meaningless. You know, I'm going to make a video about, you know, someone asked me probably a year ago to make a video about, do you believe in God and consciousness and actualization and things like that? And, you know, you think about it, you know, everyone that's been to space and they've turned around and they've looked back and they see that pale blue dot known as Earth. And literally there's a video out there, unbelievable video by something Sagan, I think, narrates it. And he says every war, every government, person, anything you've read about history, every concert, everything occurred on that planet. And we have given the meaning of success or, you know, any kind of emotion that you feel from something is because we created that. So, you know, Alan Watts, who's been very known in the 50s and 60s as a pioneer, I guess, into the philosophical, more, it's not really philosophy, it's more spiritual, more spiritual, philosophical kind of views. But he comes out and he says that we are the creators. We create the view, the perception, how things occur to us. And I was actually watching a video today, and it was about happiness. And if you put your happiness on anything external, you're never going to be happy, because number one, it's fleeting, that actual moment, or say you get a DVD or a new phone or a new car or a house, or you're in a new relationship. It's known as the law of familiarity. As long as you keep it there in your life long enough, you won't appreciate it. And there's a quote that Dennis Rodman said. He goes, "Give me the best looking girl in the world, and I'll give you someone who's tired of dating them." He used a little bit more colorful language, but it's true. People look up to beautiful people, or wealthy people, or celebrities, or people in the government, and really they're normal people that have foibles and mistakes and insecurities and everything else. The difference is that when something happens to them, they change the meaning of what happened to them. I'll give you an example. So say someone says, "No, I don't want to buy your product or service," or "No, you shouldn't run for office," or whatever. Someone said sound. If you really want to dial it down, sound came at you. You conjured up the words into a sentence, and then you put that sentence to mean something, and then you actually accepted or rejected it. And I've talked about it in other videos about it, but really there's a gap between what happens and how you respond. In other words, someone will say, "Well, they angrily walked over to me and I was ready to just get into a fight with them." Really, what happened objectively, and I always say to do this, objectively, someone just walked over and they had a scowl on their face and maybe clenched fists, and they just walked over. You're like, "Yeah, but Charles," in other words, we put so much meaning on either the adject or the what is it? What's the word that explains something? I can't believe I'm blanking on it. But you put the meaning on a situation, and then you either respond to it positively or negative. So that's why when Alan Watts said that you're the creator of your life, and why this woman, I forgot her name, Linda something, and she said this little thing called life, and this woman who then apologized, or no, I'm sorry, she said thank you when her son came over, and I interacted with her son like, "Thank you," and it like, why am I being thanked? But it's her perception was that I was either bothered or that I was doing him a favor or something. It's like, no, it's like, that's not the perception, Yeah, I don't know where I was going up with that, but anyway, I guess it's just a rant about life and how you shouldn't take it so seriously because nobody gets out alive. You should also just understand a little bit more about and just dive into books and education and YouTube clips and everything else, because it really, there's this guy Dorian Yates who is a world champion bodybuilder for many years in a row and everything else, and he was on this YouTube program, highly recommended. It's called London Real, REEL, London Real. And essentially he was asked on London Real about, Dorian Yates, who's the bodybuilder, was talking about how athletes are very spiritual because you have to go into a deep place. And he was talking about a time that he was running around a track and he did 45 laps around this track. And it was, you see the same thing. Nothing changes. In other words, the scenery doesn't change. The sun just moves throughout the day. And he said he got to this place where nothing hurt. He didn't feel anything. He didn't see anything. He had no desire to stop. It's just he got to this spiritual place. And, I guess going along with that, he said that he felt in that moment, and people close to death feel this as well, is that we're all one. Okay, so this is really deep as well, is that we're all one. In other words, you don't like someone for a certain thing, but ironically enough, that's the same thing that you see in yourself subconsciously. Because if you didn't like it, or you thought it was something that, whatever, didn't float your boat, you'd be apathetic to it. You wouldn't really care. You'd be like, oh, okay, whatever. It's not a big deal. He builds sandcastles. But if you see someone that's very vehemently in the opposite direction of your political party, then because you're in the other political party, you'll not like them. In other words, you're so deep into politics, and they're so deep into politics, but they're different sides of a coin, different parties, that you see them because they're so passionate about their side and you're so passionate about yours. You actually see yourself, different views, but you see yourself because of the passion. It's the same thing with sports teams that don't like each other. They're really, you hear about the top competitors. They don't like each other because the top competitors see themselves in the other person. And Dorian Yates came up with something really interesting. I think he took some kind of, mushroom or whatever. It wasn't ayahuasca, but it was some kind of DHT, I think it was called. And he had a trip along with thinking back to that time where he did 45 laps around the track. And he said that we're all one. And he went even deeper and he said literally every human person, you argue with someone and you're really arguing with yourself in another human. In other words, he believes of a central consciousness. Maybe not I don't know, he didn't say God, but just a central consciousness that we're all on the same consciousness. It's really, we're just living out a different way of life, a different meaning of life, even though we're all creators, as Alan Watts said. So I know I I went really, really far into, this is the area that you get. And I'm only getting deeper and deeper into it. And you know what's great? I got to tell you, when you get further and further into self-development, and obviously whether it makes sense now or later on, I know people that were talking about really deep things and I just didn't know what they were talking about. And maybe you could be completely with me, or you're just like, Charles, I completely don't agree with what you're saying or whatever. But when you talk and you listen to the great spiritual teachers, Dr. Wayne Dyer, and it just makes sense if you just study it and then you start applying it in real life, and you're like, oh my God, you're like, wow, things aren't a big deal anymore. I always thought that because of all the health, the malfunctions that happen in your health, the bad things that happen in your health when you have anxiety and stress, you lose your hair, you send cortisol through your body, you go gray, you gain weight. That's why I wanted to be happy. But now that I see it is, as Tony Robbins says, I don't see another way to live. I don't see another way to live. That's what Tony Robbins says. He says, if something really, truly, truly bad happens, he gives himself 90 seconds. And his businesses do, I think they're either worth $5 billion or they do $5 billion in business a year. $5 billion. I think his problems are a little bit bigger than ours. We'll say we stub our toe, we get into, we get a flat tire, or we fail a test or whatever. We think that is the worst thing that's going to happen. But he gives himself, he's talking about some monumental things in 90 seconds. And I heard that and I said, I want to get to that place where he literally breathes through his heart. And just go with me on this one. He breathes through his heart and he goes, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? And he goes, I lose money, or I'm late to something, or my plane is delayed, or I lose my luggage, or whatever the worst thing is that can happen. He goes, okay, I still have my health. I still have my family's health. I'm still here breathing. And it's an amazing, amazing place to get to, where 90 seconds you can just snap right back into it. So I don't even know what I'm going to title this video, but like I said in a bunch of the other videos, observe life. And it's more fun. Observe it, because you'll get a lot more meaning out of it. Talking about meaning, we create the meaning of who's right, who's wrong, who's wealthy, who's smart, who's stupid. What if that kid in there that walked over and he was so in awe of the laptop stand literally was on a totally different paradigm, and he was looking at us as like, don't you see how amazing this laptop stand is? Don't you see the years that it took to get the materials together to finally be able to have a foldable, collapsible laptop stand? And actually, it is pretty amazing. I'm not gonna lie. Now that he brought it up, and I really wish I ran into them. This is it. It's small. It's lightweight, and it folds out, and you could put your book or your laptop on it. And it was funny because a woman walked over. I was like, yeah, I think it's like $10 or whatever. I went on. It was actually a little bit more. It was 75. But I said, listen, I see the health benefits that it's going to give me. I'm not looking down at my laptop. I'm looking up. And $75 for a straight neck and no pain back there, because she said she went to her chiropractor lately, or last visit, and her chiropractor goes, are you looking down? And she said, yeah, my laptop. And he goes, get yourself a stand. And what is that, $75 for a copay to go see a chiropractor to say that? I think it's worth it. That's the way I look at it. I look at things at value, not cost. What is the value that this thing is going to get me? This trip, this seminar, this book, this interaction. Look at it in terms of value, not cost. Because one of the most expensive things that you spend money on give you no value. That $10,000 purse, that $5,000 watch. I don't wear a watch. You know, this bracelet was free. It was my sister's old bracelet, ironically enough. And I just wear it. I don't wear any jewelry, nothing around my neck. You know, I shop at Banana Republic. I can easily go to more expensive stores. I can get more expensive things. But if I see value in something, I invest heavily in it. And you should too. So that's just a rant. I've been ranting and ranting and ranting, but, 22 minutes. I hope you guys have an awesome day. Observe life. You put the meaning on absolutely everything. You create your life. You have the ability to change your life, to get what you want. And as Austin Kutcher said at one of the commencement speeches or something like that, he said, the people that built planet Earth are no smarter than you and I. So go out there and do something. All right, don't accept what the government or society or social media or your friends or your family or anyone, I think I already said the government, they want to put you in a box. They want to control your thoughts, so you just go on a straight path, so you don't cause any problems, so there's no chaos. That's why we have government and organizations and hierarchy and all these things that just try and just put things into a box when we're just a little bit above an ape. That's all we are. Look, I studied for 6 months humankind and where we came from. You would have no idea. Look that up on YouTube. It's insane. It is insane where we came from the very, very, very beginning, when we were just hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, little molecules floating around. It's unreal. Let alone even the miracle of birth nowadays. Let alone 6 billion years ago, 10 billion years ago, which, how do they even know? All right, have an awesome day. Subscribe to the video, share it. Go to itrolls.com, and I'm going to be coming out with just so much content. I want to build the world's largest self-development on top of the other business that I'm building known as BPI, which is a real estate company where I want to build the largest real estate company. And yeah, so, and also read the book by Nike's founder that just came out, and I haven't, but it's got 555-star reviews on Amazon. And Brian Johnson on YouTube, highly recommend him. He came and he talked about how incredible it is. So go to itrolls.com, sign up. Let's create the world's largest self-development community. Talk to you soon. Subscribe to videos. Talk to you. Love you all.